Hello, fellow stargazers. Bryan Colter here, Evolutionary Astrologer, for your horoscope report for the upcoming Virgo full moon that happens just in a couple days here on February 27th. And although that's the exact date of the full moon, I'll really be describing the energy of this week and the next week. With the Virgo full moon, I really love this full moon because astrologically speaking, it's not as active. There's not a lot of hard aspects being formed to the moon and the sun, so it's pretty quiet. It's not completely devoid of its challenges and complications, but comparing to the last couple of months, which I've used words like explosive, fireworks, it's been very colorful, as we started off 2021 with a bang. And now we've sort of started to descend in a little bit of placid quietude, if you will, and working with Virgo proactively from the evolutionary astrology perspective invites or requires our participation with it, and instead of just sitting back and seeing how the symbols play an effect in our lives. Because the philosophy at the foundation to this approach is that ultimately, as souls incarnate in this human experience, we're here to learn, grow, and evolve. So we're in a bit of a school. So if that's true, any information we can glean about the archetypal fields that we're currently wading through to help us accelerate that process of growth and evolution becomes pretty valuable information, needless to say. So that's how I read the symbols, And this is how we can transcend just descriptive or predictive astrology into prescriptive. It's like, okay, Virgo moon, some other stuff going on. How do we work with that astrological weather instead of against it, with the goal being to put our personal growth and evolution into hyperdrive or give it some turbo boosters. So to enter into this, the core archetypal field for Virgo is, one of the archetypes is the Virgin. And the Virgin has nothing to do with sexuality. Okay, but it is seen, at least historically, when humans were even more confused about, human sexuality, they confused virginity as this exalted state of purity. So that's what the archetype of the Virgin means, to be pure, the motivation to be pure. And here we have this full moon, full manifestation in the sky, putting a spotlight on that Virgo energy. And full moons are a beautiful time for manifestation. So we can go into our emotional world, because the full moons really amp up our emotional world, and try to feel into the energy of Virgo and figure out how we can work with this archetype of purity. So for those of you who have a lot of Virgo energy in your birth chart, for example, you have this Virgin archetype within you, quite strong. And you have the ability to compare the actual with the ideal. It's known as, yes, the Virgin, but also the perfectionist, So this is what is, this is what should be, what's out of place. In other words, you have a very high attention to detail, both in your internal environment and your external one, okay? So using that energy is kind of a mixed blessing, because on one hand, this is what is, this is what should be. We're talking about the full moon, the emotional world, our inner life. Here's the translation. Here's what I am. Here's what I should be. Now, of course, the extreme negative side of the Virgo I call the shouldinator. You should do this, you should do this, I should do that, I should do that. And, that could potentially devolve into being too hard on ourselves. And in extreme cases can devolve into just full-blown guilt and shame, which is very damaging emotions to be immersed in. I mean, guilt can be useful. We can feel guilty when we do something bad to somebody or something, and it is a sign linked to conscience. And I call guilt the sting of consciousness. It's like, oof, I shouldn't have done that. And it can motivate us to find reconciliation and to apologize and to make up for it. So guilt is useful, but if we stay there, if we're too hard on ourselves and we become shameful and guilty about who we are, who we've become, what we're doing, that's a very low consciousness emotion to be immersed in. So that's the extreme shadow side. And it derives from the fact that people who have strong Virgo energy are just simply too hard on themselves. This is what is, this is what should be, animating every thought in your head, every emotional drive in your body. Now, of course, not all of you are Virgos, but this Virgo energy is turned up to maximum now because of the full moon, the spotlight shown on this archetype. So when we look at this from the evolutionary astrology perspective, it's like, okay, how could we work with this Virgo energy now? How can I manifest a deeper relationship with this Virgo? Is to leverage that perfectionist energy in a very healthy, proactive, engaged way by taking stock of ourselves in our life, both internally and externally, and think to ourselves, how can I be even better? Striving for perfection is the Virgo way, which again is a mixed blessing, But if we also couple that with the knowing that perfection is an impossible standard, because as human personalities which have egoic expressions and we're wounded psychologically and emotionally, through all kinds of ways and karmically, it's very hard to be perfect, near impossible, but it's still a good goal, So taking stock of your life, all your thoughts and your emotions, and figure out how you can have a better relationship with those things. Now, of course, emotions is the major focal point with the moon, the full moon period. But also, it's important to take a look at thoughts, too. Because always when looking at the full moon, we take into consideration the sign it's in Virgo, and we can think of the planet that rules the sign that the moon is in as a helpful ally to help us achieve the, in this case, Virgoan goal. And the planet that rules Virgo is Mercury. And Mercury represents, it's a very heady energy. It represents the mind, it represents speech. Here I am doing a very mercurial thing, which is talking. And there's a strong teaching component to what I'm doing here, and I'm doing it on media, YouTube. So this is very mercurial. But it is of the mind, of the intelligence, yes, speech, but also thoughts, how we perceive reality. So this helpful ally of Mercury, which, by the way, is in the sign of Aquarius, and it's kind of sandwiched between Saturn and Jupiter, creating this mercurial sandwich, and they're all in the sign of Aquarius, which is an air sign. And Mercury loves being in air signs because air signs are also on the mental plane. Okay, so yes, we're taking stock of our emotional world, but also our mental one. Okay, now, of course, we can't have an emotion without at least a little bit of thought, and we can't have a thought without a little bit of emotion. Some have more of one of the other, but they have this symbiotic relationship with each other, and they feed and support each other. Now, here we are in the period of purification, Virgo. How can we more purify our thoughts and emotions, especially the negative ones, because the high consciousness emotions are already pretty pure because they're an extension of our beautiful life light, our soul energy. And any emotion that comes from the egoic personality is low consciousness thoughts and emotions. So we're trying to understand those negative subset of those thoughts and emotions with more clarity, okay, looking at them with full impunity, Virgo style. And then also recognizing where we can do better, where we can perfect. I'm calling this video Impeccable. I had one of my mysticism teachers. He was actually a Christian mystic. He says, that should be the goal. There's that word should, But that's a very good goal for every human on earth. It doesn't mean you have to do it. Free will trumps all. But in his opinion, it's a good goal to strive to become an impeccable person. Again, with the recognition that that's very hard to achieve and to not beat ourselves up when we don't achieve it, but allowing that always to be the goal. Because Virgo is such a beautiful sign. And I have a Virgo moon, so I'm a bit biased. So, bear with me. And I like to defend Virgo because the Virgo energy is kind of the butt of a lot of astrological jokes in the astrology community. Like, oh, you must be very good at organizing things, or being a nitpicker and being up in other people's business and stuff like that. And that's true. That is a shadow expression of Virgo, and it can manifest. But with compassion, we recognize that if someone becomes a nitpicker, let's say, and in somebody else's business. We understand compassionately that derives from the fact that that person treats themselves that way. This is what I am, this is what I should be. And then if they project that outwardly, especially if they have some strong fire dynamics in their chart as well, they're more likely to do so. Then that's a shadowy expression, because here you are, trying to being too hard on yourself, and that can manifest as being too hard on other people. So anyways, Virgo gets picked on a lot. But in some ways, it can be seen as the coolest sign in the zodiac. Now, Virgo doesn't get described as cool very often, but there is no sign that's so hungry for growth and change, and that doesn't have the potential to pack in as much growth and change, as possible. It's because here's what I am, here's what I should be, better get on with it. My teacher, Stephen, he calls Virgo burning evolutionary rocket fuel. It's like, whatever I am, whatever I've achieved, I'm not there yet. And of course, that can sound pretty neurotic or depressing, but Virgo energy can sure cover a lot of miles. So here we are trying to become a little bit more impeccable. What a beautiful goal. Yeah. And Virgo is a sign opposite of Pisces. And implicit in the fact that we're experiencing a full moon, we have sun opposite moon, sun in Pisces, and here we are in Pisces season. I love Pisces season. And with the Virgo moon opposite. So the energy, the polarity between Virgo and Pisces, of course, is activated here. And I see opposite signs as kind of like a teeter-totter. We're trying to find a balance between the two, so one doesn't go into extreme mode and we start damaging ourselves and our potential and our evolutionary path. Now, Pisces can help to support this Virgo agenda to become an impeccable person, while also infusing some of that Piscean juju of compassion. It's like, yes, there's that piece. Impossible standard, but it's a good goal. And to have compassion that we are flawed, but we are striving to grow in this kindergarten through 12th grade, that is planet Earth. So another way Pisces can support the Virgoan goal of perfection is through the mystic archetype of Pisces. And of course, we also have Neptune in Pisces nearby. We have Venus in Pisces as well. So a lot of Pisces energy in the mix, where the mystic archetype is really activated in saying, through different levels of consciousness, we can do some of this deepest work as we take stock of who we are and who we can be, and see that so vividly. So through meditation, we can achieve this goal of striving to be an impeccable person. And I feel compelled to share a meditation practice that I think is one of the most important meditation practices anybody can do on a daily basis. And this is actually one that the same mysticism teacher I mentioned, he's the one who taught me this, says even if you're a beginner meditator or mystic, or a super seasoned, advanced, sort of veteran meditator, he says no matter where you're at in your development, this is an essential, because it helps to strengthen this process of introspection, okay, which is not a process that a lot of mystical paths teach, actually. It's pretty rare. They'll focus on strengthening your ability to visualize and concentrate and observe and meditate, but a lot of time they'll leave out the introspection piece. Not all of them, but it's pretty common for that one to get left away. So here we are, going to introspect. Virgo process is very much about introspection, and through meditative states, figure out how we can become more impeccable. And this one I call daily introspection. I think I've shared this before, maybe on a video or two before, so if you've heard this before, I apologize. This is one I'll actually teach in my upcoming mysticism course in my new website that's coming out soon. Keeps getting delayed, but I am going to have my School of Consciousness there, as well as my new School of Astrology, so stay tuned for that. But this is one of the core practices that I'll teach. And basically, daily introspection, right before you go to sleep, okay, so you're getting drowsy, you're getting a little tired, you're in a meditative state. We all get into a meditative state before we fall asleep. You're in what's called alpha or theta state, which is light trance or deep trance. And we all go through that phase just before we hit delta, which is sleep state. So you're already in a meditative state. I recommend do this sitting up in your bed or maybe in your room. If you do it lying down, you'll probably just fall asleep. And you remember the day that you just had from start to finish. Where did you wake up? What were you thinking? What were you saying? What were you feeling? And recount the whole day in its entirety from start to finish. And at first, it'll be very hard probably for you to do this unless you have a very strong observation ability. But, most of us live 80% subconsciously. That's the human average anyways, which basically means 80% habitual. So 80% on autopilot, a lot of us. So sometimes it'll be hard to recount the day with such great detail, and that's normal. The more you practice it, the better you become with it. And think to yourself as you go through your day, looking at it from a place of detached observation with full impunity, Virgo style, take stock of everything you thought, felt, and all your actions, And then recreate the same day as if you were to do it in an impeccable fashion, as if you were Jesus incarnate, walking through the same day. So what you're doing is you're realizing you're shining a light, very, very full moon terminology there, shining a light on your day, the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? And don't judge yourself. There's no no praise or blame here, because those are just opposite sides of the same coin. They're not going to help us very much. And you see how it went, and then you recreate that same day as if you did it flawlessly. And not only will that help you to develop more present tense awareness in the following days as you become more and more aware of your 80% ingrained behavior, and then the next time you live out that day, you will also have more power and strength to pivot and to choose something else and to choose that higher path, that higher octave expression of the possibility available to you in that moment. And I love this meditation exercise, especially during this full moon. It just fits the archetypal field so well as we take stock of all our thoughts and emotions and see how we can do it in a more pristine way. Now you can understand what this Virgo full moon means for you with an extra layer of specificity, because I am generalizing somewhat because I can't see all your charts, if you know a little bit about your own personal birth chart. And if you don't know how to do that, there's many YouTube videos that'll walk you through that. I'll be selling a pretty cheap product on my upcoming website that'll teach you how to do that as well. Shameless plug yet again. But if you just know a little bit about your chart, understand where the Virgo section of your chart is, you'll know where the full moon is going through that area of your chart, and which depicts an area of your life where you can really focus a lot of this Virgo energy. But even if you just do this meditation, I just love it as the combination of these energies. And this is all amidst this year of 2021. I mean, we're very much digging into the minutia of this lunation cycle, and the moon moves very quickly. But the larger backdrop view of 2021 is this major tension between Saturn and Uranus, or from Capricorn and Aquarius, very similar tensions. Which is basically control and resistance versus freedom and autonomy and independence, So that is the major tension of 2021. We are sovereign beings. That is our divine right. And of course, we all want to feel free. And there's going to be a lot of fighting for freedom, and hopefully in more peaceful ways. We'll see a little bit of both, as is always. But that's the goal. Humanity is sick of the control. We're ready to feel the wind in our hair. We're ready to fly in the air like the solitary splendor and independence of an eagle. So we're attempting to evolve, basically, evolve into a more freedom-seeking way of life. And the best way to do that is to also tap into the Aquarian and Uranian energy of individuation, becoming a truer expression of who we really are instead of who we've been trained to be based on how we've been controlled. And I defer yet again to this meditation, because as we shine a spotlight on our negative thoughts and emotions, also shine a spotlight on the thoughts of emotions that are more evolved, that express from emotions like love, compassion, peace. We have those, we put more energy into recognizing the polarity scale there The more we express the higher consciousness emotions, the more the expression of our life light of our soul can be expressed out into the world, okay, and no longer be covered by the dirty garments of learned behavior as this personality that comes from the low consciousness emotions that we've learned from culture and family. And a lot of our pain and wounding is passed down for many generations. Let's say your mom or dad has anger issues. You pick up on some of that. Well, they probably picked it up from their parents and their parents. So, it comes on down the line. So we have this ancestral sort of, pain and suffering, basically. And it's our sole responsibility to break that chain. And this is a beautiful way of doing that. And of course, the more we transmute our pain into love and light, the more individuated we become, because we express who we really are as soul energy, again, instead of who we've been trained to be. So that is the core evolutionary intentions here, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness. Thank you.